Children's book author Stephen Cosgrove dedicated his book, Weedle on the Needle, to all the children and not so children that live and play in the shadow of the Space Needle that stands in the heart of Seattle, Washington. Growing up not far from the city, I have been one of the children who played in the shadow of the needle. The heart of Seattle can not only be defined by the structure of the Space Needle, but also by the people whose hearts pump Seattle blood through their veins. The Space Needle serves as the landmark that brings all of these hearts together. Built for the 1962 World's Fair, the Space Needle holds historical significance, and it has evolved since then to become a vital part of the atmosphere and culture of the Pacific Northwest. I am proud of landmarks found in and around Seattle, like the Space Needle, because they make my home special, just as your landmarks make your home special to you. Part of what makes the Space Needle significant is the history behind its existence. According to Travel Through History, the World's Fair was set to be held in Seattle in 1962 after Seattle City Councilman Al Rochester proposed the idea. The theme, Century 21, was decided upon, and the fair needed an eye-catching landmark that epitomized futurism. This was how the Space Needle came to be commissioned. Architect Edward Carlson sketched the original designs on a napkin in a coffee house, a move that embodies the Seattle way of life. The original sketch, however, is not an exact representation of the structure which was born into Seattle's skyline to stand out. John Graham and his team of architects altered the Space Needle design by turning what was a balloon shape at the top into a flying saucer. SpaceNeedle.com's account of its history states that the 120-foot by 120-foot plot of land was sold to investors for building on just 13 months before the World's Fair was set to begin, and cost just $75,000. The Space Needle stands 605 feet tall and has remained structurally sound, in part because of my granddad. Warren Engel, my dad's dad, was working for Industrial X-ray Engineers in 1961 when they were hired by the construction company that was building the Space Needle. Their job was to do non-destructive testing on the needle, which meant analyzing the properties of the materials without causing damage. They used X-rays to look for cracks, air bubbles, and other signs of damage in the parts that comprise the structure. My granddad happened to be the supervisor who was in charge of reading the X-ray film and determining whether or not the films were clear of any imperfections. Because of his work in ensuring a safe and lasting landmark, the Space Needle continues to be a thriving piece of our Seattle identity today. I have grown up hearing about how proud he was to have been a part of Seattle's history, and my family is still fascinated today with any news surrounding the Needle. I have continually been intrigued by how often it still shows up in news stories, usually because it is once again evolving to accommodate the modern day. The architecture page on About.com discusses the ongoing renovations to the ever-changing Space Needle. Nearly every aspect of the original World's Fair Needle has been updated, including the entry-level restaurant, observation deck, and the grounds surrounding the landmark. Even the paint color has been altered. The saucer, originally Galaxy Gold, was recently painted with an evergreen tree design to celebrate its 50-year anniversary. Also, according to Howard S. Wright Construction Company's website, the additional skyline-level banquet hall was added recently to the platform 100 feet off the ground. Another tradition which has evolved over time is the light atop the Space Needle. During the World's Fair, a torch was lit on top of the saucer. When the torch went out once, my granddad had to go up to it and x-ray it to find out what the malfunction was. This is no longer an issue because the Legacy light is the newest version of the torch and shines a beam of light upward to the sky on major holidays. Despite the changes the Needle has undergone, it has never stopped being a part of Seattle's livelihood. The Seattle Space Needle has woven itself into the fabric of Seattle ever since it was built. On New Year's Eve, thousands of people watch fireworks shoot off the Space Needle at midnight. During football season, the top of the Needle hosts a 12th man flag in support of the Seattle Seahawks. Washingtonians, as well as people across the country, recognize how special the Space Needle is, and over 1 million people visit the Needle each year, as stated by Cairo TV. Over the past 57 years, the Space Needle has grown to be cherished by the people of the Pacific Northwest, and its value to the city of Seattle has increased. On the Space Needle's 37th birthday, the city's Landmarks Preservation Board named it an official City of Seattle landmark and stated, "The Space Needle marks a point in the history of the city of Seattle and represents American aspirations toward technological prowess," according to spaceneedle.com. When designs for the needle were first commissioned for the World's Fair, the appearance was meant to represent the future. As the future became the present, the Space Needle's historical value and evolution into a modern and popular location have made the needle an essential landmark to the city of Seattle, perhaps as essential as the 12th man is to the Seattle Seahawks.